Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So today, guys, we are going to be talking about what to do if you cannot get out of the United Kingdom. Now, people will be watching the landscape in the UK and people will be seeing the descent into absolute madness. So what I want to focus on today and what I want to go through is like a few people have been asking, Sean, what do we do if we can't get out of the United Kingdom? What if we do if we can't leave? Well, I'm gonna talk about that today, guys. Okay, so this is gonna be a little bit different to our normal morning live stream. What I'm gonna do then, once I've gone through this as a monologue, I'm gonna close it down. I'm gonna upload this to YouTube. I'll then be back on later on this morning. And we'll be having our normal, our normal little morning discussion. So let's just go with it, guys. So we are triple streaming today, ladies and gentlemen. So we are on TikTok, we are on YouTube, and we are on X as well. So let's just begin, ladies and gentlemen, because like I said, this is not my normal morning live stream. This is a live stream I wanted to do last night. I was really busy. I had some work come in, so I had to do that, and that like took me up to like 11:30. So let's just get on with it, ladies and gentlemen. So do this now, ladies and gentlemen, okay? If you can't get out of the United Kingdom, this is what everybody should be thinking about, okay? I think this really builds on Hibernate, Relocate, Evacuate. I've added a few little bits in there, and I've kind of like taken out Evacuate, because if you can't evacuate, that's kind of the purpose of this live stream. So, excuse me. What to do if a conflict or crisis hits the United Kingdom. Now, whether it's riots, an attack by whatever fringe group you guys are thinking, natural disaster, all sorts of stuff, guys, or maybe even like a combination of the above. Like, how do you feel, and how do you stay safe? So do you hunker down, or do you move somewhere safer, or leave the country altogether? Obviously, leaving the country altogether is not an option for this live stream, so we're kind of just going to float over that, guys, okay? So what I want to do is I want to break this down and give you guys practical lessons, and I'm going to try and, as best I can, build this onto real world scenarios, guys, okay? So I guess this should be a wake-up call to a lot of people. So we like to think that the United Kingdom is a safe country. I mean, I'm saying that laughing because at the moment, the crime rate in the United Kingdom is rising exponentially. So, you know, maybe the UK is a safe country. Maybe it is not a safe country. I could certainly argue. But history shows, you know, that the United Kingdom is not immune to chaos, you know. 2011 London riots. I think it was 2003 Bradford riots. Last year riots. You know, all these things are happening, and they seem to be happening more often. You know, of course, there's the attacks that happen every couple of years. We get one of these big attacks by. I'm not going to get into who and why. I just want to focus this on what to do, guys. Okay, so. Very quickly, the United Kingdom could turn into a civil war zone, and I believe we're being fractured and we're being divided into those lines, guys. Okay, for example, in 2000, and I don't know if you guys know the scenario in Haiti in 2004, gang violence trapped people in their homes, and like some of the stuff that was happening in Haiti. Do not think that can't happen here in the United Kingdom, because it can, guys. All right, so. If unrest hits, I don't know, Birmingham, Cardiff, Swansea, Manchester, London, I guess, like, would you be ready right now? You can imagine that, guys. Like, what would you do right now? Would you be ready? So here's my first question for you guys, okay? Just think about this. Have you ever been caught near a protest or an incident in the United Kingdom, and it makes you feel like really unsafe? It makes you, and you think, wow, everything was fine until it's not. And people always say, oh, I never thought this could happen to me. And that's kind of the thing. People think this will never happen to them until it does. So anyway, guys, okay, using a simple framework, I've spoke about this before, but I am going to focus this live stream more on focusing on the United Kingdom. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about hibernate, relocate, evacuate, missing out, kind of playing lip service to evacuate in total. Plus, I'm going to be answering this. I'm going to be talking about this, guys. All right. No, I can pretty much guarantee nobody ever mentions this. All right. Money, 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 money. Can you keep paying your bills, ladies and gentlemen? Because the way we're seeing the United Kingdom erode at the moment, being deconstructed, it does look like there's going to be more people unemployed, less jobs, and that's just going to bring financial hardships to everyone. So I'm going to be covering that in a little bit, guys. Okay. So hibernate. All right. So crisis breaks out, whatever that crisis is, kind of doesn't matter. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this live stream is if you guys cannot leave the United Kingdom. And right now, my advice to you would be to leave the United Kingdom. So hibernate. So this is about staying put, basically, in your house, your flat, wherever you live, stay where you are. All right. It could be too dangerous to move. For example, if you lived in Har Hills, like, was it last year? I think it was last year. Like, if you live in Har Hills last year, that would be a time where you would definitely not want to be moving about, guys. You would want to be staying put. So picture riots in your city like Har Hills or 2011, or an attack shutting down major roads. For those of you guys who were watching the live stream when I went up to Sheffield, the whole of Sheffield, that city block was closed down. You can't get out. Those people have gone. They have to hunker down. So here's a few tips how to stay safe in the United Kingdom. Okay, guys. Stock essentials. Everybody, I talk about this all the time, guys. Okay, food, water, medical, whatever you guys need. Tin beans, bottled water. We've talked about that forever, guys. All right, I've done plenty of videos on that. All right, stay informed. Now, this is a difficult one, because when I used to teach this, I would always say in my lectures, do not listen to social media. I would always say that on my briefs. I'd say, look, guys, do not listen to social media. Only go with reputable news outlets. But now I've been doing social media, I know 100%, guys. I know that. In fact, hang on. Let me word this right. Now I've been doing social media and putting videos online. I'm confident that the information breaks on social media before it breaks on the mainstream media. So that's entirely up to you what to do with that information, guys. All right. So normally when I would be teaching this, I would say, do not listen to social media. Only go with, like, you know, reputable news outlets. Now I'm not so sure, guys. Now I'm not so sure. That's going to be one for people to you know, take it on board themselves. Okay. Keep a low profile. Don't be having the lights on. Don't be having a party. You can imagine now there's like rioting and protesting right outside your street, right outside your house. If you're there with the lights on and you're letting people know you're there, you're going to become I'm not going to say you're going to become a target, but you will certainly attract attention. Turn the lights off, close the curtains, go upstairs, go into a back room, and stay out of sight. That's what I'm saying. So if you had to move now, guys, so right now, this minute, this second, ladies and gentlemen, what would be the one item in your emergency kit at home that you would take with you? Like, do you have something right now that you would think, right, I have to go right now, I've got 10 seconds, what are you going to grab? Literally, guys, what are you going to grab? Now, this is going to fall into, urban survival. And look, guys, tell me how many people talk about urban survival. I can pretty much guarantee no one. You get all these prepping channels, and I love watching those prepping channels. You know, when people go into the woods and they're like making food and stuff. The reality is that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen, guys. Nobody is grabbing their backpack and going into the woods with the wife and kids. And you're not gonna whittle a future and making like little wood huts and stuff, guys. It's an absolute fantasy. Okay, urban survival. That's what you need, ladies and gentlemen. You need to start thinking about urban survival. Excuse me. So let's move on then to the next part. Okay, relocate. Now, this is the main crux here, guys. If somebody asked me yesterday, Sean, what do we do if we cannot leave the United Kingdom? So just as a quick caveat, ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest now anybody with the means to leave the United Kingdom right now and think about leaving the United Kingdom for at least 12 months or at least until the next election. So if you can't get out of the United Kingdom, guys, all right, do this, all right? Start thinking about a relocation area. Our house is a relocation area for all our friends and family. So relocate, move to a safer area in the United Kingdom. Now, I'm going to give this a little bit generically, and then I'm going to come more onto specifics, I think. If this crisis is local, you know, for example, I don't know, Edinburgh, not Glasgow, Manchester, not Liverpool, Oxford, not Cambridge, you know, it's obvious that you're not going to want to be in the, you know, in the heated zone. Or maybe you are, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know what? Maybe you are. Maybe you've got your warlord chaps ready to pull out. But what I'm getting at here, guys, okay, is choose a safe spot. Head to a quiet part of town, a friend's house in the countryside. There will be websites that will be talking about these locations and where they are cordoned off. Because what you've got to think about is when there's a mass event, I'm not talking about these little riots that we've got at the moment. I'm talking about a mass riot, a mass civil disobedience scenario. What the police will do when the police back off and they can't hold the crowds anymore, they will just back off and they will try and contain it. So I don't know. Think of a village. I don't know. Finningley. I don't know if you guys know where Finningley is, just outside Doncaster. So let's just say, for example, that the rioting, the protesting has broke out in Finningley. I'm just going with an example, guys, right? If the police get overthrown in Finningley, they're going to back out of Finningley and they're going to try and contain it within Finningley. They'll get reinforcements, they'll wait for it to die down, and then they'll go back in. So that's what I'm talking about there, guys, all right? So that location will be cordoned off. Plan your route to that location. You know, don't get out the house and just think that your normal route will be safe. There'll be a lot of people wanting to evacuate. There will be a lot of people, potentially hostile people, on that road if it's the main road. So sometimes the long way round might be the quickest way. Pack light. So what do I mean by pack light? Urban survival, guys, all right? And again, like I talked about this in lots of videos. Do not get yourselves one of those backpacks. You know those huge backpacks that have got like all the what's the word I'm looking for? All the patterning on the back. Molly pattern, or what I think it is. I think it's called Molly pattern, where you can put extra pouches on the back. If you saw, so if you saw somebody wearing one of those backpacks, absolutely brimming, absolutely full. He's got pans hanging off it. He's got water bottles. He's got his boots, you know, and he's trudging away. And he's, you know, and like, what are you going to do to that guy if you're a bad person? You're going to steal that backpack, aren't you, guys? You are literally going to steal that backpack. That backpack's gone because it's got cool stuff in it, clearly. If you're wearing minimum stuff, you've got like a little tiny backpack with the bare essentials in, one of those cross-shoulder bags that I think are fantastic. You know, you're not going to attract that third-party attention. So, you know, you need to try and keep yourself, keep a low profile. That's what I'm getting, guys, okay? And travel smart, ladies and gentlemen, all right? Drive yourself. If you can't drive, do you trust a taxi driver? I don't know. Public transport. Now, this is a tricky one, and I'm not sure what the answer is here, guys. All right. When I've been in hostile environments, public transport has always been the safest way out. It doesn't sound like it, but trust me, guys. Right. Public transport is the safest way out. So you can imagine you're in in Donetsk, all right, way out in eastern Ukraine. All right, you're in Donetsk. The Russians come in, they take Donetsk real quick. They take Donetsk. Like I've just said, they then cover all the access and egress routes into and out of Donetsk. If you're leaving Donetsk in a shiny Land Cruiser, you're going to get stopped, you're going to get pulled over, and you're going to get scrutiny. You may even find yourself in a gulag. All right. If you're there, sat on the back of a, of a Ukrainian bus full of Ukrainian people, you're sat there with your head down, you're not bringing any attention to yourself. Those soldiers, they're not going to want to pull everybody off that bus and check them, because they feel it's like a low risk. That if you've got a bus, you're not. If you're on the bus, you're not of any importance. But trust me, guys, in hostile environments overseas, public transport is often the best and the safest way out. Now, public transport in the United Kingdom, I don't know how that goes, guys. You could argue either way, but it's just a consideration. Excuse me. So let me ask you this question real quick, guys. If you had to leave your house really quickly right now, where would you go and why? Like right now, guys, somebody knocks on your door. Where would you go? Where would you go and why? Like, where would you go and why? So right now, you may have never thought of it. Right now, guys, can you just think right now, somebody knocks on your door, you have to go. Where do you go? Right, I don't know. Everybody's going to be different. So money. Let's just talk about money, guys. All right. People forget this. I don't know any of these these channels. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, guys. Okay. I know there's lots of comments. I'm doing this slightly different this morning. I'm gonna monologue this through. What to do if you get yourself. What to do if you can't get out of the United Kingdom. I'm gonna monologue this through. I'm going to close this down, and then I'm going to come back on, and I'm going to do the normal live stream. Okay. I will get a few questions, but I just want to get this out there, get this video uploaded, and then we'll continue, guys. Okay. So I want to talk about money. All right. I used to work away quite a lot, like probably 10 months of the year. I wouldn't be in the UK. And you'll see where I'm going with this. I had my parking space for my car was underneath my apartment, my flat. So I went away one day, and the company that ran, you'll see where I'm going with this, guys. All right, the company that ran my I guess security on that car park, they gave everyone a car pass, and they said. You've got to have that car pass in the window or it'll get clamped. Anyway, for whatever reason, I didn't put the car pass in the window, and I left the country. So I left my car there for like 3 months in that parking space without any, without my car pass. Literally the first day I got into the country I was going to, I had an email from the building manager. He said, "Sean, you've not put the car pass in the window." I said, "Mate, I can't. I'm out the country." He says, "Well, the company's come and they've put a clamp on your car." I said, "Mate, I'm literally out the country." He said, "Well, they're going to fine you." I said, "Mate," I said, "first of all, you know that that's my car, don't you?" He says, "Yes, I know it's your car." I said, "I'm in my parking space, aren't I?" He says, "Yes." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He says, "Look, I don't know. They've just put..." Anyway, I got back. I'd had a court order through to pay a fine for parking in my... Yeah, I'd had a court order through for parking in my own parking space. It was absurd. But because the time had elapsed, I was out the UK. I think I was out the UK for 3 months. Because of the time that had elapsed, it had gone to court. Because I didn't turn up in court, the courts had favoured inside of the clamping company. I had like a CCJ against my name. Honestly, guys, it was an absolute nightmare for me to get that removed. So what I'm getting at here is, guys, all right, people don't care about your personal situation, all right? The banks don't care about your personal situation. The courts don't care about your personal situation. So this is your time to think financially, guys, all right? And this is not financial advice, ladies and gentlemen. This is not financial advice. I'm not qualified to give anybody financial advice. This is just some considerations, okay? So let's talk about money. Because what we're heading to in the United Kingdom, guys, it doesn't just threaten you, your safety, it can hit your wallet, and it often does, ladies and gentlemen. So if you think shops closing, I don't know, guys, do you think that's happening in the United Kingdom right now? Banking system being hacked, You know, there's a huge amount of scenarios where you will be hit financially. So here's a question, guys. Okay. Would you be able to pay your mortgage right now if you were out of work, or your bills? Let's say your outgoings. Can you cover your outgoings for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months if you was out of work right now, guys? Like, would you be able to do that? I don't know what the answer is. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not financial advice. I'm clearly not qualified. And if you've seen how much money I've wasted over the years, you would know I'm definitely not qualified to give anybody financial advice. So build a cash reserve. Try and build a cash reserve. And I know it's difficult for some people. You know, Thursday comes, Friday comes, all your mates are going out, and you're like, oh yeah, let's just go out. Do you know what, guys? You know, if you can't pay your bills and you're struggling financially and you get kicked out of your house because you can't pay your rent or whatever, would you be really happy that you went out with your mates that night? Or would you rather have a roof over your head? I think I know the answer, but who knows? Who knows? I guess the answer to that question is going to depend how old you are. Check your budget, guys. All right, monthly outgoings and incomings. Like, do you save? Literally, guys, do you save? I know some people won't be in the ability to save, but everybody should try and save something. All right, and that comes from checking your budget. Like, and the big one here is mortgages, guys, because I do think and I do believe there is a war on homeowners right now, guys. I think the laws that are coming, the taxes, it's going to make things very difficult for people to keep their houses. So I'm just trying to give you guys as much of a heads up as I can. If we remember, there was times like, if you guys can remember, what was it, like 2020, there was mortgage support in that time of crisis. So, you know, I know there are systems out there. If you're employed, ask your boss. Just say to your boss, say to your employer, you know, and it may be one of those awkward conversations, so you may want to frame it differently. You know, boss, I don't know what you call it, your boss, Mick, John, Fred, Harry, Jane, like, boss. If there's a crisis, like mass protesting or rioting, are we still going to be open? Is there a scenario that we can work from home? Everybody's scenario is going to be different. If you work in a pub, for example, obviously that pub's going to be closed, but you know, so I don't know what that scenario is. Plan for disruptions. Okay. So try and set up as many direct debits as you can, or pay bills in advance. That's what we do. I don't have direct debits. We pay bills in advance. I know it's not as easy for everybody, but look, guys, let's just consider cyber attacks, banking systems going down, like job losses en masse. Can you continue financially? You know, people just don't talk about that anymore, guys. I think people have totally forgot about that, and nobody seems to talk about it. Everybody, when people say, "Oh, would you be ready if the UK was in a crisis?" People say, "Yeah, I've got my survival kit. I've got my sleeping bag. I've got my purification tablets. I've got all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm fine." Okay, what about your house? What do you mean? What about your mortgage? Well, it's a crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Right, there are varying degrees of crises. I don't even know if that's a word. I think it should be, but there's varying degrees of crisis. And what we're seeing right now, it's not going to be the big right hook or left hook, actually. It's not going to be the big left hook. It's not going to be Big Ivan going, "Ivan." All right. It's going to be a lot of jabs. It's going to be a lot. And I don't mean like injections. I mean just like little left rights. So that's what it's going to be, guys. All right. So I don't think people really understand how much these little straws are going to eventually break people's backs. Obviously, when we're talking about hibernate, relocate, evacuate, I'm not going to cover evacuate here, guys. It's just not. I'm not going to cover evacuate. The crux of this live stream is what to do if you can't leave the United Kingdom. So it would be pointless talking about evacuate when the crux of this live stream is not if you can't evacuate. Just a couple of tips, guys. Okay, blend in. All right, blend. Like if somebody was to say to me, "Sean, I'm going to be in the Middle East or anywhere actually. I'm going to be in the Middle East in the middle of one of the worst riots ever. What would your advice be? My advice would be blend in, keep your mouth shut. That would be my advice, guys. Literally blend in and keep your mouth shut. So again, this comes back to not wearing any of the flashy gear, not becoming a target yourself. Go with the flow, ladies and gentlemen. Go with the flow. Like you may be, you may be like the hardest patriot in the world. You find yourself in like one of these pro-Palestine marches, or the opposite way around. You may be a pro-Palestine supporter, and you may find yourself in the middle of a patriotic march. The advice is the same, guys. Go with the flow. Don't go across grain. Don't make yourself. Don't let people know you're different. Do you know what, guys? Chant their slogans. If you're in that crowd, chant their slogans. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Try and blend in. And what I mean by keep your mouth shut, all right? I used to see this all the time. You'd be in like one of these like an airport or like in a coffee shop in Syria or somewhere outside Baghdad, and you would see people who are blatantly Western. Americans are terrible for it, and they'd be sat there having coffee really loud, and you're thinking, dude, you're like in the middle of Baghdad. Bad stuff happens here. And I'd be sat just, on my own, or maybe one interpreter, keeping my mouth absolutely silent, and I would blend in. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is, okay, try and blend in, all right? If you're in, I don't know, if you're from Manchester, right, if you're from Manchester and you're trying to hide in Liverpool, your accent's going to give you away, lad. So, keep your mouth shut. Equally, if you're from London, well, I can't even do a London accent. I don't even want to do a London accent. But you get where I'm going, guys. Okay, in the United Kingdom, we have a very peculiar accent range, guys. We really do. We have a very peculiar accent range. Like, I can tell somebody's from my village from somebody that's like another village, maybe 4 or 5 miles away. I can tell different accents. So, what I'm getting at here is, guys, keep your mouth shut, right? Nobody needs to know your accents. Keep your movements and your sounds down to a minimum. Stay connected if you can, ladies and gentlemen. Let your friends and family know where you are. Anyway, guys, as a final question, because listen, ladies and gentlemen, this live stream was a little bit different. I am going to close this down in like a couple of minutes, and then I'll reopen it back up, and we will have our normal morning discussion. So, as a final question, guys, and then I will come and get some comments. As a final question, what would your biggest worry right now be if a crisis did hit the United Kingdom? Are you worried about where you would go? Are you worried about where you live? Are you worried financially? Like, what is your biggest worry? And then as an add-on to that, ladies and gentlemen, what steps are you taking to mitigate that? Right, I'm going to jump and get some comments, guys, okay? Lone Prepper on YouTube is saying, bug in, folks, and only bug out if there's a threat to life. Yeah, I agree, guys. Everybody has this fantasy of, in fact, let me put that comment back up. Everybody has this fantasy of of putting all their kit and equipment in a backpack and heading off into the hills. It's not going to happen, guys. Just think how much water you need for one day. That's 3 kilos of water for one day. All right, or 2 days is 6 kilos. You see where I'm going, guys? 10 days out in the wild, and you're going to have to carry 30 kilos of water. That is a lot of water, ladies and gentlemen. Trust me. You can store 30 kilos of water wherever you live without a sweat, guys. All right, that floor's not gonna get tired. Emma Green is saying, if we go to war, would we have to keep on paying rent? Silly question, I guess. But if your house has been damaged, then what would you be paying for? That is a good question, Emma. And this is another one with the finances, isn't it? You're going to have to see your insurance company. You're literally going to have to find out through your insurance company. I don't know. I don't know if there are. Look, Emma, I don't know the answer to this question that I'm going to ask. Is there like insurance companies that would say, right, okay, I will insure you in the unlikely event of a war. We will pay for your food, accommodation. I don't know. I mean, I know there's insurance companies that do similar sort of stuff. If you're working in a hostile environment, like they'll send hostage negotiators, they'll send, you can get private jets and all sorts of stuff. I don't know if there is something like that, but it's certainly one to look into. Alex Reed is saying, went to Bristol March on Saturday. It was scary, horrendous. I ended up leaving, didn't feel safe at all. So there we go, guys. Alex Reed's just, perfectly encapsulating what we've just been talking about, okay? When you're at these marches, when you're at these protesters, things get heated, things get wild, and you may want to leave. You may not be able to leave, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hang on, what's going on? Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down in a minute. I'm only going to answer relevant questions at this time, relevant to what to do if you're in the United Kingdom and you can't get out, guys, all right? I am going to close this down in a minute, and then I'm going to come straight back on. And we're going to have our normal morning breaking news chat, guys, okay? Witchy Lab says landlord pays insurance on the building, tenants for contents. Tina Corey is saying financially we are basic wage, working family of 4. We struggle to see through the month as it is. So yeah, so Tina, so my question to you, Tina, and I know a lot of, and I don't mean to, I don't mean to, like, if I'm not going to pin that comment. Tina is saying she's worried financially. Because they struggle to see each other every month through. This is going to be the reality of the situation. If a crisis breaks out where you live, you'll have to deal with it yourselves. So if you can see that crisis coming, if you know the problems that you have yourselves within your family, you can take steps to rectify them. You can take steps to mitigate them as best you can. I don't know what your personal solution is for you and your family, but just imagine this, ladies and gentlemen. If there is a crisis, if you and and I'm talking to everybody now, if you and your husband, or however your family's structured, do find yourselves out of work because that company's gone bust, because the government's taxing that company too much, how are you going to pay your bills? And this is another question. Do you think your mortgage provider care? Do you think they care? Do you think they care? Or do you think they're just going to say, no, I want my money. I literally want my money. Give me my money. I want my money. I would say it's the latter, ladies and gentlemen, because ultimately banks are in business to make money. Right, guys, listen, I am going to close this down now. I'm going to open it straight back up. I'll probably a couple of minutes. I'll open it straight back up, and I will be, we will have our normal morning chat, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to close this down now on TikTok and YouTube. I will then open it literally a couple of minutes. I'll be straight back on, guys, and we will have our normal morning chat. So just don't go anywhere, guys. Literally do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Right, so they are off.